Hey everybody, welcome to DRTV. I'm your host, Jay Friesen.
And I'm Brian Matson.
And this is Above the Paygrade. We are very excited to welcome morning show host from my dad's favorite radio station in Portland, Oregon.
Hey, that's cool.
I know, right? He's like, oh, that Dan guy works for Kink? I'm like, yeah, Kink FM in Portland. He's like, oh, I listened to that in high school, all growing up. It's like it's the only station I listen to when I go. Yeah, so Dan Merchant is joining us, and Dan has the fame of being the morning show host, as well as writer, director, and co-executive producer of Sci-Fi's Z Nation. You know that zombie show?
Zombies.
I love zombies.
Blood, guts, gore.
Dan, thanks so much for joining us, man. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks, guys. It is my pleasure to be in the 21st century with you from my space station circling Jupiter, beaming back to you. So,
well, you are doing stuff on Sci-Fi, so that little Jupiter thing did not surprise me at all.
And while he's up there, he's test growing marijuana or something to see how well it grows in space.
That's right. Well, it grows better on the dark side of Jupiter. There was something about the radiation. I don't know. I can't explain it.
Well, you really are sci-fi. Wow.
I like this.
This is great.
So, Dan, tell us briefly your claim to fame, which some people may know of and some people may not. So, what was that first documentary you did with looking in?
Sure. I've got 3 or 4 very, very, very minor claims to fame. The very first one might be that I was the original producer of Bill Nye the Science Guy.
No kidding.
Going way back when.
Yeah, that's something that I didn't even know.
Yeah, no. Bill Nye and I wrote on a TV show in Seattle called Almost Live. And I was a kid right out of college, and I as a contributor, I wrote skits and jokes, and would show up once in a while in a skit. And the show ran for a bunch of years in Seattle, and got picked up by Comedy Central at some point. And Bill was a staff writer on that. Then I moved on to the CBS affiliate in Portland, Oregon, and invited Bill down there, and we did a pilot show that won some local Emmys, and then he went on to do the show that everybody knows that ran on the Disney Channel, and PBS I think had it for a while. Yeah. And then I did my other minor claim to fame was a thing that ran on VH1, the dubious claim of being the only dramatic series that VH1 ever tried, and it was kind of a rock and roll Twilight Zone show that Roger Daltrey from The Who and John Taylor from Duran Duran and pretty much any rock star I wanted to meet, I would write a part for them, and they would
That's
come
fantastic.
on.
And you were broadcasting from Jupiter, and they were all smoking weed like rock stars.
They were there already. They were there. Yeah, my best near miss was trying to get Joe Strummer from The Clash to come on and do a part before he died. And he wrote a really cool email back. He said, I'm touring Europe with the Mescaleros this summer, and I can't, but you should get that bloke from Pearl Jam.
That bloke.
The bloke, the one that get on your show.
I lost you for a second. There we go.
Oh, so that bloke would be like Mr. Eddie?
That's all right. Sorry, that was a solar flare from the 8th moon of Jupiter. Yeah. That's what that was. So anyway, so I did all that stuff and had some fun making TV, learning how to do it, and having a lot of fun along the way. And at a certain point, I got the independent movie bug, and I went, this TV show for VH1 and Paramount Pictures was really fun, but all they did was bring the money. We did everything else. Right. So I thought, I'm going to do an indie thing, and all we have to do is raise the money. And 5 years later, 5 heartbreaking, expensive years later, I go, when Paramount brings the money, it makes things a lot easier. So in between there, I had this life-changing experience doing a documentary film about the collision of faith and culture in America called Lord, Save Us from Your Followers. Right. And it got a theatrical release in fall of 2009, and then was out on DVD and Netflix and Hulu and whatever else. It'll be 5 years this spring. Wow. So the movie still pops up. I did 3 tours across the country with that and spoke at every place from chapel at Baylor University to the Divinity School at Yale to Southern Baptist churches in Georgia and all gay audiences in San Francisco. So kind of everything across the country, every kind of audience blend. And the thing that was really cool about that movie, it was really trying to debunk the whole us versus them mentality that Christians, so I'm a proclaiming Christian, so I'll say we probably ought to pay attention to what Jesus was into, and what was important to him ought to be important to us. Sure. and I'm not sure it is always. And so that the movie kind of challenges that in a variety of ways. And it was great to be able to go around the country. It was designed as a conversation starter, and the thing that did my heart well was that no matter what audience we showed the movie to, we could have the conversation.
Wow!
And what was cool at the end of the day, the Christians thought I made the movie for them as a look in the mirror, and everybody else thought I made the movie for them to try and understand some of the more positive aspects, or at least as Christians, who we purport to be and who we're trying to be and who we fail to be. But it was a much more kind of honest discussion, and absolutely tried to punch in the face the whole us versus them mentality that Fox and MSNBC and everybody lives on these days.
Right. So it sounds like you, Bill Nye. It sounds like you struck a pretty good balance there. Then, if the movie's getting those diverse reactions from the audience.
Well, that was certainly the goal, and so what that means is the filmmaker, unlike a Michael Moore or a Bill Maher, who basically come on and advocate one position and then tell you why you're wrong if you don't agree.
Right.
The idea really was to put it out there and be thought provoking in the purest sense, or as good as I could do. And so one example would be we set up a confession booth at a gay pride event in Portland, Oregon, and I confessed my sins on behalf of the church, and it messed people's minds up. I mean, we talked to 28 gay people came into the confession booth that day, not knowing they were in a movie, not knowing I was going to confess to them, and it was sad, it was beautiful, it was heartwarming, and really when you make a movie like that, if you're not willing to be first in line and apologize and try and start the conversation someplace, then you've got no place to go. And that, I don't know, the humility's a bit of a lost art, and I had to get kind of ground down to a cinder a little bit making the movie.
Wow.
And that was good for my soul. So that's the Lord Save Us story in a nutshell.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for being the humble one, the I don't have it all figured out first in an approach to a conversation, saying I'm not here to. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
So okay, so now here you are. Now you're a professing Christian. And
right.
You are a writer and a co-producer, co-executive producer of a zombie show. Now, listen, here at Dead Reckoning, we are huge on Christians being a part of the marketplace and being engaged in all the various disciplines that somebody can be engaged in, right? We are into Christians in the arts and Christians in law and government and politics and science and education and all of that. Christians on a zombie show is gonna
I would
throw
love
some.
to work on it. That would be so cool.
That is one that we didn't expect. I think that's one that our audience probably didn't expect. So we want you to talk about.
But everyone loves zombies.
This really unusual thing of this Christian writer of this zombie show. How did this come about, Dan?
Well, it came about because I failed to be a Christian to break into porn. It was like I couldn't get in. So
I've been working on that one for a while. It'd be a good money.
Yeah.
If I can't do that, what could I do? So zombies. So yeah. Well, I mean, I think the thing that you gotta think about is that I'm one who believes that you try and identify what your gifts are, and then you've got your obligation to your family to make a living, and you've got your obligation as a believer to go where you feel like you're led, and that can mean any place. And then I think when you're in that place, like a Hollywood writer's room, where let me think here, we've got a Buddhist, we've got an atheist, we've got an ex-Catholic, we've got a kind of a how would he put it, I suppose a Lutheran, a hardened Lutheran, and
is there any other kind?
A Jew, yeah, exactly. A Jewish lad, and let me think, one more, and I think she's Catholic from South America. So you've got this spectrum of the community, and what you learn if you're paying attention and you're listening is that we're all the same, and that we're here with the opportunity on this earth to learn from each other and to learn about each other and learn about ourselves through how we interact with each other. And I think that's, if I take anything from from Christ's teaching. I'm strangely drawn to the Last Supper after Judas leaves, and my paraphrase is, all right, you knuckleheads, I'm not going to be here much longer. I'm going to give you one thing. I want you to get this straight. Love one another. If you start there, if that's your filter, then you've got a chance. The rest of the stuff's going to kind of fall into place. And I think that's true. I think if we get the outline out of order, we have problems.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and if we start there, love one another, and go, well, if I can try and look at the people across the table from me the way God probably sees them, if I can somehow force myself to consider that position, God's position, where He loves everybody equally and He made everybody, then that's a place for me to start. And there's joy in those interactions if that's what we're trying to do.
Well, not to mention, it'd be really terrible for your career if you came in with a 2x4 and started hitting everybody over the head with your beliefs. That does not go very far in the writing room.
No. Well, that plus the altar call on day one failed. So.
You tried to work
your altar call, and
the zombies were coming in, and I
tried.
tried having an altar call in that scene. It just didn't work.
Well, here's the other thing that surprised people with a zombie show, would surprise people too, is that everybody in this room is trying to do excellent work.
Right.
So that part probably doesn't surprise you. Stuff turns out crappy sometimes, but not because you're trying to make it crappy. You are striving.
Right.
But the other thing that happens is you find out that everybody loves their family. Everybody's trying to get through in the world in a way that leaves a positive impact. Everybody does have compassion and has a kind heart for others. So it's really weird in this show. It's kind of a funny zombie show, Z Nation. Mm-hmm. Sci-Fi's 10 o'clock, comes back this September. And it's a show with a lot of empathy in it. And so you'll notice some things, and you'll see it's not just my fingerprints, but it's certainly there, but it's the fingerprints of other compassionate writers, whether they share my faith specifically or not. There's a thing that happens every time we kill it, not every time, but we do it a lot, where we kill a zombie, we give them mercy. I give you mercy. Boom. And it's sort of a way of remembering that this monster, this zombie, that really is kind of a stand-in for the other. If you think about the zombie craze in our society, sure. Why is this stuff popular? Well, it's kind of like ISIS. Let's call ISIS zombies, and I don't have to think about them as human beings. I can just make them the other. I can make them the bad guy, and we can exterminate with impunity. So there's a scene in one of the episodes I wrote where there was a situation where one of our heroes, ended up killing these 4 zombie firemen, and there was a chance that one of them was her former husband, and it turns out it wasn't. But there's a scene where she goes, "I give you mercy, may God give you peace." So that's in our zombie show. Right. And so what we're trying to demonstrate is something that I would argue with Christians and non-Christians alike is severely lacking in our society, in our world today, and that's empathy. Mm-hmm. That's taking a beat to think about where the other person might be coming from. And in this particular exaggerated case, that other person is a zombie.
That's too true. I mean, that's one reason I appreciated so much about 28 Days Later, is there was this approach to the humanity of the zombies. It wasn't quite so horror-esque that you couldn't really it wasn't a slaughter fest, but it was
sure.
It was like I can relate to that. But I'd also expect that there'd be a little bit of that it would just be interesting in the writing room, because with all these different worldviews coming at the same story, it makes it for just the inherent nature of that depth of worldview makes all the characters and the stories themselves have a lot more depth and context and even a little more realism. It's not like if 3 Christians gathered around the room and tried to preach a message with zombies, it just would never fly.
Well, and I think you probably hit on it right there, is that we're trying to tell a good story about human beings and interesting characters. We're not trying to tell a Bible story and disguise it poorly, which is just about damn near every Christian entertainment piece I've ever seen.
Right.
It's a pamphlet. It's a crappy Sunday school lesson. It's not drama. It's not anything. It's not art. It's not anything that's going to move somebody on a deep level. I don't know. I'm generalizing, but I'm thinking of the stuff that gets touted. It's like God's
Sure.
Not Dead might be the worst piece of tripe I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
It's the worst summer camp sermon I've ever seen. It's an us versus them story, and those are easy to sell. And Lord Save Us from Your Followers was very complicated and very difficult and challenging. That one is not, for example.
It's easy to sell to your clique. It's not. It's harder to sell outside of it, and I think that's what you're getting at. That a lot of Christian art is made for the choir. I mean, it's made for the people that are already convinced. So,
which is great business,
right?
That's really smart. That's really smart business, but quite often it'll be dressed up like, oh, we're trying to spread the gospel to those who haven't heard it. It's like, guess what? Everyone's heard it. They haven't seen it.
Yeah,
you need to show people what it is. That'd be the big difference, I'd argue.
Right. Yeah, and then there's the fact that entertainment by itself, people come to associate so much of reality with entertainment. I mean, how many people look to John Oliver or Jon Stewart as like, these guys are the news. I get my news from these guys. Well, there's satire and comedy. I mean, there's some news thrown in, but it's more just a platform for them to be funny.
Well, and Jon Stewart literally calls it fake news.
Oh, yeah.
Good evening, I'm doing fake news. So he pulls no punches about what he's doing, but you're right. And that's the thing about, the maybe the cable news things, and even, as we learned with our friend Brian Williams on the NBC News, it's devolved into a form of entertainment.
Right.
And the recent, I think it was this week, the poll that Fox News is, the most trusted news outlet. It's like, because they don't follow very many journalism rules. So that's a problem if you consider that news and not kind of opinion-based entertainment, because that's mostly what it is.
No, I agree. Now, on that line, though, on that note, that guys like Stewart and even in Fox News and those guys, they're using these platforms as vehicles to deliver fake news or deliver reports or whatever it is. But their worldview influences what they're writing, influences what they say, and influences how they say it. How is your worldview when you approach the writing for Z Nation, when you're in this room of people? You've given us a couple of examples, but what are some things you try to highlight and emphasize in the characters and the story of Z Nation? Well,
mostly I try within our kind of exaggerated environment. The apocalypse is an exaggerated place. I try and make it entertaining. I really feel like my first obligation to you, my contract with you, is I'm going to entertain you. Mm-hmm. That's what you're sitting down to watch a stupid zombie show for, is to be entertained. So that's job one. It's simple, and that's probably why those movies on the wall behind me, Raiders of the Lost Ark and Back to the Future and Caddyshack,
entertaining movies.
They're entertaining. They're movies that can pull me in, and if there's enough truth about the way human beings operate embedded in the show, then there's a chance for you to get something out of it. But if you're not entertained, then I haven't pulled you in, and there's no chance to do anything. And so that's the first job is to entertain. The second job, I think, as a would-be artist, is try and be challenging to myself to tell stories or have characters or jokes or points of view that you haven't seen before, and that's pretty hard.
Sure, originality is hard.
With as long as as many storytellers have been around forever, and human beings haven't changed much since the Old Testament and beyond. So it's a challenge, and so meeting that challenge kind of on a personal level is one of my goals with everything I write and do. And then thirdly, I think that the takeaway, I'll go back to empathy. I mean, I feel like that's something that our world is lacking. And if in some goofy zombie show you can put a beautiful grace moment in, you can have a self-sacrifice moment in there. If you can have something where somebody considers somebody else more important than them and does something heroic on to save another, those are good things to remind people of, because in our kind of consumerist society, and certainly in our black hat white hat communication paradigm that's kind of set up in the media to offer something that's not, if you're different than me, then you're bad. If you're Republican, then I'm Democrat. If you're you're Democrat, well, then I'm Republican. Whatever. I mean, that's kind of how we've been taught. It's some kind of a transaction. And if I can offer something that throws a wrench into that, that's confusing, why are they sparing that zombie? Why are they doing this? Why are they helping that guy who tried to screw him over? Why are they risking their lives to do that? Those become questions, and with such a repetition in the media of a lack of empathy and a justification to be selfish. I mean, all the Ayn Rand kind of philosophy that has seeped into, get yours. That's the American way. It's like, I don't know. I'm not sure I want that to be my American way. Sure. So in these subtle, goofy ways inside of hopefully a highly entertaining and fun, television program, I hope those are the things that might stick to the back of people's heads.
Cool. So Dan, let's talk about zombies and zombie movies, and what is with the explosion of interest in the genre? This is, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big zombie genre fan.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, Jay loves, oh man, he'll watch zombie stuff. Yeah, we got
one of our board members, Casey, is a massive zombie fan.
Big zombie fans.
Nice.
I'm not, just the genre is not my style, right? But I find the phenomenon interesting as to why there's this explosion of zombies in the public imagination. And I was curious to get your thoughts. And you've explored a little bit of that, was as a stand-in for the other and that sort of thing. But is there some sort of some kind of a nagging sense of impending doom or something in our society?
It's funny. I don't think there's anybody, maybe one or two guys out of all the writers on the show are what you'd call fans of the zombie genre. The rest of us are just writers who are interested in, telling stories. Right. So it's kind of interesting that wasn't, we didn't have some burning desire to do that. One of the creators, Craig Engler, is quite a fan of the zombie genre, and we're all well versed in, pretty much any genre you want to talk about, we're into it. Right. But it's kind of fun to sit down and kind of analyze with fresh eyes. And we have the conversation, the question you asked, we have that a lot. And one of the things we've noticed is that this latest uptick of zombie movies is post 9/11.
Sure.
So there's this new, end of the world kind of idea. I think the other thing about the way information spins around the planet so much faster and in so much more vivid detail, as in, we don't just hear about the tsunami in Malaysia, we see it on somebody's camera phone.
Right.
So there's a reality to, for lots of people, the apocalypse has already come. It's already happened. You go to Central Africa, it's there.
Right.
It's already happened. And so I wonder if that's not in the back of our brains somewhere, that, we've seen versions of the end of the world happen over and over and over. And maybe we're seeing it in more with more clarity than we have before. You think about the first zombie movie, really, that kind of popularized it, George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. Sure. It's at the end. It's 1968. It's the most, you could argue, the most tumultuous time in American history since the revolution, the
Civil War, anyway. Sure.
The revolution and the Civil War, exactly. And so, if you remember that movie at all, it's there's no explanation given. It's just suddenly chaos in the streets, and everybody's holed up, and it's a pretty bold move. The only survivor of this one farmhouse with all the zombies is the black guy. And when the black guy comes out on the porch, having survived the night, a redneck shoots him in the head with a rifle. That's how the movie ends.
Oh, wow.
In 1960, I just went back and watched it again last year and went, oh my gosh, that's how they end the movie in 1968?
Oh, wow.
Holy crap.
There's a political statement there.
So exactly. So it reminds you that political commentary and social commentary probably wasn't an accident in the first zombie movie. And then as Romero moves through his series, consumerism is sort of a stand-in. The Dawn of the Dead, everybody's holed up in a mall in Pittsburgh,
right,
and the consumer zombies are pouring in, and that's who they fight against. So I think the social commentary has always been a part of it, and maybe the target has changed from the civil rights movement upheaval of the late 60s to the corporate takeover stuff of the 70s and kind of the rise of the consumer culture, really. The post-Vietnam, consumer culture. And then in the most recent blush, I'd say it's post 9/11 with the remake of Dawn of the Dead being 06, 07, and 28 days later was what was that, 04, 05?
I think so.
Shaun of the Dead. So all these things are post 9/11. So again, that's where we come to the conclusion of it's sort of the stand-in. It's a way to, it's the way to vent our spleens in this violent way where it's simple. They're bad, we're good, let's kill them. And, I think that's, frankly, that's the way that lots and lots of Americans, my countrymen, would look at the conflicts in the Middle East. We get them very simple. And you look at the controversy around American Sniper, it's that exact argument.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's our best guess, that it's a fear of the unknown, it's a fear of the other, and then some storytellers did very creative, very interesting things. The Walking Dead, this very meditative, existential kind of approach to it, as opposed to less of a monster movie, more realistic. And Z Nation, we try and put some of the fun back into it. We're trying to make an action movie, not a soap opera. So ours is we turned it up to 11 and let it go.
Action.
So
right.
so we've got different approaches to it.
Okay, so you've just told us Z Nation you're into action, trying to bring action back into the zombie genre. You're making it fun. So you told us what you love about Z Nation.
Sure.
I want you to sell me on Z Nation. Why should I start watching Z Nation?
Because he's not a zombie lover.
Why should people love this show? Come on, what's in it for me, Dan? That's what I want to know. I'm a selfish American. What's in it for me?
Well, here's what I would say. If you don't like zombie shows, you won't like this.
Oh, okay.
So here's the entertainment contract. If you're making a zombie show and you want zombie lovers to like it, you've got to bring what we call the splarch.
Splarch.
Splarch. So it's got splarch.
You need the splarch.
That's a beautiful word because it sounds like what it looks like. I like that.
There it is.
Splarch.
Yeah.
Splarch.
So it's the show's got to be nasty and gross and scary and surprising, and you got to show somebody a new kind of zombie. We have little shorthand that we do, like we'll say things like, "Oh, we need a wheel well zombie in this." Because in one of the episodes, the truck wasn't running right. They pull over, go to change the tire, and there's a zombie all stuck, just jammed up in the wheel well.
Nice.
And it's just just gnarly.
Done.
It's all twisted. So then it's like, oh, this is a good scene, but we need a wheel well zombie here.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, let me come back with something more horrible than we've ever seen before. So by virtue of pleasing a zombie fan, you eliminate anyone who doesn't like zombie shows.
Fair enough, sir. Fair
now
enough.
there's a movie that was out a couple years ago called Warm Bodies. Did you guys see this?
I did not see it, but I heard about it, but I did not see it. So I know of it.
It's hilarious. It's wonderful. It's a zombie movie, and it's about this guy who. It's a great metaphor, and it came out on Valentine's Day. It's a zombie romantic comedy chick flick.
Oh, right. I know what you're talking about.
And so their metaphor is. So what I'll do is I'll sell you on Warm Zombies and tell you why you won't like that one too.
Okay.
Warm Bodies. So what happens is, as this one zombie falls in love, his humanity starts to come back. He becomes less zombie, and his human nature starts to return, and he basically comes back to being almost fully human. And it's a beautiful metaphor about love and connection with another in this world. And if you don't like zombie movies, you couldn't stomach it because they're still half rotting. And it's like it doesn't matter. It's beautiful. It was like a 16 Candles kind of romantic comedy, and it's with rotting human beings.
Oh.
So it's the rotting human being, and it didn't do that great at the box office, and nobody could figure out why because it was such a good movie. And it's the zombie axiom. If you don't like zombie movies, forget it.
Okay.
You won't be able to stomach it.
I'll be honest with you. I'm about to tell you this is probably heresy in this room. Okay. I got turned off on zombie movies because I one time went to the theater with a friend to see a movie that unfortunately I had no idea what this movie was when I walked in. We were just going to go see a movie. And I walked into this movie, and it was called From Dusk Till Dawn.
I love that movie.
By Quentin Tarantino, and I got to tell you, for an hour and a half, I was bored out of my mind because it was just this road trip movie of these cons running, and then
that movie.
then you get like a half hour of zombies, and I got to tell you, by that time in the movie, I was not expecting zombies. Okay, I just got to tell you, like the zombie thing happened, and George Clooney's wiping out zombies for the next 45 minutes. And I don't think I've watched a single zombie thing ever since.
George Clooney with that neck tattoo, that was the meanest
tattoo was cool.
I've ever seen him. And then that camera pans back at the end of the movie, and the saloon is sitting on top of a temple. That was the coolest shot of the whole movie right there.
It was cool, but I want him to...
Now here's the thing. I'm pretty sure those are vampires, not zombies.
See, you totally blew it. It is vampires. You're right. I totally...
But when that came out, when that shot came out,
that
was a great movie.
That was some serious foot
that
in
was
mouth right there. Shove it
so
all the way down.
What we're learning is that Brian has never actually seen a zombie movie. He's only seen vampire movies.
Same diff.
Well, and I was going to say, too, I saw that movie. And it's like, vampire stripper Selma Hayek is what you should have taken away from that movie.
I'm just not a Selma Hayek fan, apparently.
When she did that, she came back and it was like, whoa! Man. I was not expecting that.
Yeah,
it also it also happens to be the first Tarantino movie I ever saw, and I just wasn't a fan.
Well, as far as Tarantino movies go, it's horrible.
Okay.
Yes,
that's a terrible movie.
Okay,
so I'm
happy
right
to hear
you.
that. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah,
I liked it.
No,
I thought it was
Did
fun.
you?
Now, see,
it's kind of fun. It's lazy though. It was 2 movies in one. It's like, I got this heist movie. Let's be clever and tack a little horror thing on the end.
Okay, so I'm not completely out to lunch. I was right.
No, you're not. You're not.
No, I'm completely out to lunch. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll throw Jay under the bus on this one.
All right, great.
Z Nation on the Sci-Fi Network.
You can find season 1 on Netflix and Amazon Prime and all your.
It's just out on DVD.
Out on DVD.
There you go.
Even that, dude. If people have machines in their house instead of like streaming things.
What are DVDs? I don't even know.
They're like laser discs, except never mind.
Smaller.
Never mind. That's all fine.
VHS taped.
It says, go ahead and check it out. I hadn't heard about it, frankly, until actually right before I met you, like a month ago or a couple weeks ago, and it was like, what? I gotta check this out, a new zombie show. And I've been hearing about The Walking Dead forever, and I was like, I just don't have time to watch it. So I fire up the first episode because I need to be the informed, not so informed host, type of thing.
Right?
Like I'm gonna pretend like
you gotta do your research.
I'm gonna pretend like I know Dan and what he does, and really I have no clue, right? So you just fake it.
You did watch it.
So I did watch it. I did watch it, and the moment the baby turned, I was like, yes. Because I really wanted that little rescued baby to suddenly turn into a vampire or a zombie. I was like,
screwed you up.
And that was great.
Yeah, no, listen, that's pure Carl Schaefer. He's the showrunner and the other creator of the show, along with Craig Endler. And Carl is hilarious, and he's just got this great instinct for just how far can we push it, and trying to sucker an audience, play with the audience's expectations, sucker you into this moment, and go, oh, they're not going to go there, are they? Oh yeah, they went there.
Yeah,
and and so there you go. In that episode, we have one of the lead characters is Harold Perrineau, who you know from Lost and The Matrix, and he was the big name in the show. And I'll just spoil the first one for people because we've got about 9,000 twists in this series. But the baby eats the most famous guy in the show in the first episode.
People weren't expecting that. No.
That was not it. So when an example of Sports Jay is when the team comes rushing back in and the baby is elbows deep in the entrails of the most famous actor on the show. We knew we'd done our job that day. We all went home satisfied.
It was pretty funny. The turn and that's the first episode. So wow. I need to get with the rest of this. I'll probably binge watch them, which won't take much. They're pretty good.
All right.
Yeah, they go fast.
Are they gross?
It's pretty fun.
Are they gross? Of course they're gross.
They're not depends on your tolerance level.
Oh, okay.
Depends on your tolerance.
Yeah, I mean it's basic cable. So sci-fi's basic cable. It's not like an R-rated movie, and our budget's low enough. We can't do too much.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
we got to keep it moving.
And you play God of War, so it's got the same level of violence.
Fair enough.
There you go. Video game gore. That's
gore.
about right.
I got you.
That's about right.
Yeah, that works.
Well, that's
so.
fun.
Dan, where can people follow you and stay in touch with your stuff?
You can check out Lord Save Us themovie.com for the documentary there,
Sure.
and I'm on Facebook, Twitter at Dan Merchant Kink. And KINK, as in there's the app for the radio show, which you can hear anywhere. That's 1019 KINK FM, and it's a Portland rock station. But we do humor and current events and play some cool music and have awesome bands come by the studio. So
Fun.
as far as day jobs go, that's pretty sweet too. So
Not bad.
I'm in a good space. I've got 2 awesome jobs at the
That's
moment.
awesome.
I'm loving it.
That's
Cool.
pretty rad. Well, you can follow us at deadreckoning.tv. We have a little player there that I just learned you can push a button and from your droid to your Chromecast is like up on the TV.
We're going to teach you how to do that.
Yeah,
at some
and then you can do the
point.
same with the Apple
Yep.
TV. I've never done it, but I'm
Yep.
like, whoa. So yeah, follow us on deadreckoning.tv. We have Facebook links, Instagram links, Twitter links, and all of the above. To follow me on Twitter, I'm Jay Friesen, Friesen. I tweet about things like family, bourbon production, and the occasional rant on expensive gear.
You can follow me on Twitter at Brian G. Matson. I tweet about, I don't know, all kinds of stuff.
You tweet about divisive politics and
I do
religion
tweet about
and
politics
theology,
and religion
and he's
theology
the brain.
and culture and
That's
all the
the
rest
brain.
of it.
See, now, if Zombie came running into the room right now, it would go straight for you.
Why? Because I have big brains or something?
You have
Is
a
that what
bigger
you're saying?
brain.
Ah,
Bigger brain.
I
Dan,
see.
thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, it's my pleasure, guys. Nice to hang
Yeah,
with
thanks
you.
so much.
you.
Awesome having you.
You're watching DRTV. I'm Jay Friesen.
I'm Brian Matson.
And this is DRTV.